Another edition of Behind the Lines, presented by TheLines.com and BetMGM Sportsbook. I'm Eli Hershkovich, joined as always by Christian Cipollini, trading manager at BetMGM. Christian, I always say anytime you could do a podcast outside in December, you have to do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Pretty nice looking over there for you.
Out in LA, you're on the East Coast. Merry belated Christmas to anybody out there watching and listening. And speaking of Christmas, we had a doubleheader on Netflix. No buffering, at least, unlike the boxing match a few weeks ago, a month ago or so. Starting off with the Chiefs and Steelers, Patrick Mahomes now 27 9 and 1 against the number as a dog or favorite or of 3 points or less. I'm assuming somewhat of a bloodbath for BetMGM, just considering the result in Steelers Chiefs.
That was actually okay. I think I've talked about this before on this podcast, but BetMGM, we have a pretty decent Steelers backing. So they're one of our more popular teams, to begin the season and week in and week out. So we did end up taking a good amount of Steelers action, probably on top of the fact that the Chiefs, as we've mentioned, hasn't done the best job of covering in a lot of these games. So we did end up taking actually a little bit more Steelers handle than expected. So we were okay on that game.
And veering over to the second matchup, Ravens-Texans, Baltimore blowing out Houston as well in that game. And Lamar Jackson, we touched on NFL MVP odds in last week's episode ahead of NFL Week 16, now in the midst of NFL Week 17. And Lamar Jackson surpassing Michael Vick to become the NFL's all-time quarterback leading rusher. And he's now plus 160 to win NFL MVP. He was plus 700, mind you, leading up to NFL Week 15. Josh Allen still favored at minus 250, but what's the best outcome for BetMGM in this market?
Yeah, so that game was terrible for us yesterday. The Ravens won. We ended up doing okay because SGPs actually helped us because none of the Texans players did anything. They didn't score any points. But the Ravens winning, yeah, that wasn't a good outcome. And then on top of it, the fact that Lamar played so well and is getting himself right back into this MVP race is not what we want. Lamar is a loser for the book, where Josh Allen is a winner. So we were hoping that this MVP was done and over with, but Lamar's got other plans. So Josh has still got 2 more games, but the book is certainly wants him to be the winner here.
And we alluded to it with the Ravens and Chiefs results since Week 5. Kansas City favored over Pittsburgh. Baltimore favored over Houston. Favorites since a little bit past the quarter-way mark of the NFL season. 77-53. 77-53 against the spread. Good for over a 59% hit rate, covering by more than 3 points per game. So if we look ahead to the Saturday matchups as we record here on Thursday, December 26th, Chargers 4-point road favorites in New England. Denver, dog at Cincinnati. So conversely, the Bengals favored by a field goal, albeit juiced at minus 120 at BetMGM. And the Rams favored by just under a touchdown, minus 6.5, minus 115 against the division rival Cardinals. So among those 3 games, Christian, which one, not necessarily discussing, okay, what the book needs here, but which line do you think is the most inflated here?
Yeah, I'd say easily, from my opinion, would be Cardinals-Rams. Division games are usually pretty close. While the Cardinals are now eliminated and out of it, they haven't been a terrible team. So I think at this many points, in my opinion, is a ton of points. Where I think the other 2 games probably make a good amount of sense. The Patriots, while they're 3-12, they have looked a lot better with May, and probably more than likely or not will be able to keep this one close. So that one makes sense to me. Same with Broncos-Bengals. Obviously a must-win for the Bengals. I mean, not that it's not a must-win for the Broncos, but the Bengals have looked much better as of late. So 3-point favorites at home, to me, that makes sense. So, yeah, I'd say it's the Cardinals are a bit, or the Rams are a bit overinflated, because I do think the Cardinals have a chance to keep this a little closer.
Yeah, and I was thinking the same way, too. I'm curious to see, because we're recording this before Thursday Night Football, Seattle and Chicago. So if the Seahawks get upset by the Bears on Thursday night, this would be a win and you clinch the NFC West for the Rams. So do you think this line could shift to the key number of 7, assuming this is that scenario for LA?
Yeah, my opinion here, I don't think it does. I think if we get to that key number, we'll start getting a ton of Cardinals action, and I think the rest of the market would see that as well. So I think this is as far as it's going to go on the Rams. So, yeah, if you like the Cardinals, I'd take them now because it's probably the best number you'll get, at least in my opinion.
Okay. No, that's good to know for sure. And the Rams will have revenge on their minds after that blowout loss in week 2 in Arizona. But obviously, huge game for them, not only just with the revenge, but potentially to clinch the NFC West. So, staying with these 3 games, which side has, or total for that matter, but since we're talking about point spreads, which one has received the most sharp action?
Yeah, from a sharp perspective, that was that Chargers-Patriots game. If I talk about from the other side, more the public action, the Broncos will be the one out of those 3 that will probably need the most. I think everyone has hopped on the Bengals bandwagon. A ton of them are betting them. I don't think a lot of people kind of realize that even if the Bengals do win out and the Broncos lose out, that there's still the Dolphins and the Colts in there trying to make that playoff push. But I don't think that's going to stop Bengals backers. I think we're definitely going to need the Broncos. Will be our biggest need.
All right. And then what about player props? Anything lopsided with the handle in any of those 3 games?
Yeah, the one that I saw when I was looking in that Chargers-Bengals game is probably not surprising, but a ton of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow overs, although Denver's defenses look pretty good, so I'm going to assume that was probably some public betting there, just always backing Chase and Burrow because the fact that Surtain on the Broncos has been pretty good, and maybe there's a chance he does hold them, but public doesn't think so, at least as of yet.
Sounds like the book will be needing Chase unders without a doubt. And another big matchup looking ahead to late Sunday afternoon, depending on where you're watching football. The 11-4 Green Bay Packers at the 12-3 Minnesota Vikings. This line price -110 both ways on the money line, total of 48.5. So the line indicates, or at least in terms of the movement over the course of the week here, a few days in, that Green Bay is power rated higher in the market if these two teams met on a neutral field. What's the handle like for this game? And a ton on the line for seeding purposes, but also for Minnesota still having a chance to win the division, tied atop the NFC North, although Detroit has the tiebreaker as of now.
Yeah, so from what we've seen so far, yeah, this game is a pick'em. But we have seen a little bit more Packers action, but nothing crazy. There is a decent amount of Vikings Packers, even though they're kind of, I guess at this point, probably the most disrespected team at 13-2. They're not talked about as the rest of the teams that are high standings numbers as they are. So I think we're going to end up getting a lot more Packers action as we get there, but so we'll probably want the Vikings.
Curious, too, when we look at the futures market, just because Green Bay has back-to-back wins in prime time a couple weeks ago in Seattle on Sunday Night Football, and then this past week at Lambeau Field on Monday night against a decimated Saints team injury-wise. But still, 2 primetime wins. Has that correlated with any action for Green Bay to either win the NFC or potentially among Super Bowl odds, even with the 2 teams above them in the NFC North, Detroit and Minnesota, also contenders in the conference and to win it all?
Yeah, so when we look from a future standpoint, at least the way the book is operating is we're saying there's 7 teams that have a chance to win the Super Bowl, and the rest are pretty big long shots. The Packers here fall as the 7th in that number right now, plus 1,400. We've taken... They're actually one of our better outcomes. They're one of our least bet on teams of those 7. It's the Vikings, the only one ahead of them in that regard. So from the book's perspective, we're very much okay with the Packers. We haven't really seen anything crazy, no big bets or at least a high enough volume, at least for us, that is going to get us concerned. But so we're very much okay with the Packers, and at this point, it's one of the ones we would like the most.
All right. And looking at this NFC Week 17 odds board, we'll take a look at Falcons Commanders, the Sunday Night Football matchup here in a moment. But I wanted to ask you, just considering how bad these matchups are, to put it bluntly, across the board on Sunday, do you expect this to be one of your least bet Sunday afternoon slates? I know we have a couple division matchups, including Dallas and Philadelphia, so that'll attract bets, even though Texas isn't the legal sports betting state. But Dolphins, Browns, Colts, Giants, Titans, Jags, another divisional matchup. Same with Carolina, Tampa Bay. What do you expect here overall handle in the early afternoon Sunday slate?
Yeah, I think you're nailing it with this one. It's not too good, and even that Cowboys Eagles game that you mentioned, that line just dropped from 9.5 to 6.5, which is pretty much telling you at this point there's a pretty good chance that we're not going to see Jalen Hurts. So even that one game that looked like it was going to be pretty good is now not looking nearly as good. The two big ones are the ones we were just talking about: Packers Vikings and Falcons Commanders will probably be the two bigger ones. That Falcons Commanders game actually is going to have some decent playoff implications, seeding wise, and everything like that. So in general, Week 18 is usually our least bet on week of the NFL season because there's so many, resting and all different types of things like that happening. But the way that things are working out this season, a lot of these games are kind of meaningless. And they're also not great games with the teams that are playing on paper. So I guess we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'd imagine that this will be our least bet on week of the year until next week, which will probably top it.
And tangentially, you brought this up at the beginning with same game parlay results, especially in Texans Ravens, with no one scoring on Houston. No matter what player you had in your same game parlay, you was in the Royal U, whether it was Nico Collins, Joe Mixon, whoever it might have been. How much of the handle have same game parlays started to take up here in that regard, just in general, on a normal NFL week, in this case 17 slate, or any given week?
Yeah, so from I'll use that Texans Ravens game as an example. SGP handle ended up being somewhere around 20% of our total handle for that entire game, and even with that, the fact that most of those lost really helped fix the fact that we were very heavily bet on the Ravens. So we really need the Texans. They didn't even remotely come up for us, but the fact that they were so bad actually helped us in turn because a lot of those SGPs just didn't end up catching. Because even Lamar, as good of a game he had, he didn't even throw for 175 yards. So if someone tried to throw, just an extra leg, Lamar 175, not even that one hit.
Yeah, the 20% is definitely. I mean, it stands out just considering.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that? What was it like last season, comparatively speaking? If you could generally speak to that.
Yeah, so from BetMGM's perspective, our SGP was totally different from last year to this year. You had to go into a different portal. It was a little bit harder to use. So we have, as you'd imagine, now that you can just click through, we have seen a significant uptick from this year to last year because, obviously everyone loves to do those too. And the fact that you can easily do it on the portal has obviously shot our numbers up from that perspective.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up with BetMGM yet, use promo code THELINES, that's the lines one word, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code THELINES. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll then receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure to use bonus code THELINES when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, and 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire within 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code THELINES and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Absolutely. And looking ahead, as I mentioned, to Sunday Night Football, Commanders, Falcons, Jaden Daniels going to win NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year against another rookie quarterback, Michael Penix, a surprise pick in the top 10. But now it seems like Kirk Cousins is going to get cut after a massive deal moving from Minnesota to Atlanta in the offseason. Penix making his second career start, and the Commanders are 4-point home favorites, so over the key number of a field goal, total of 47.5. Any sharp action here on either side? And keep in mind, for anybody watching or listening, earlier in the week, we did see this line shift a bit from Washington -4.5 down to, as I had on, -4.
Yep, so exactly there. Earlier in the week when we were at 5, we did see a little bit of sharp action coming in on the Falcons, which got us down to 4. 4 isn't as key as a 3 or a 7, but it is somewhat of a key number there because with field goals, it does end up falling there. So my guess is this where it ends up staying. Since that sharp action that took us there, the rest of the money we've taken so far has been on the Commanders. I do probably expect that to stay the same. The book will probably be rooting for the Falcons.
And over to Monday Night Football, rematch of last season's NFC Championship game. The 13-2 banged-up Lions against the 6-9 49ers. I was on Chicago last week, just full circle with our conversation, Bears-Lions. You said you weren't going to get any action on Chicago. I bet the Bears, and I regret it, even though the box score may have told me otherwise, similar to that Vikings-Bears matchup in Week 15. But I digress. Detroit still with a cluster of injuries and favored yet again above a key number here, or right around a key number of a field goal. Line was bet up a little bit earlier in the week, depending on the shop, from a juiced Detroit -3, now up to -3.5. 49ers juiced in their direction now at -115 plus 3.5. But I'm guessing in this spot, another primetime game, you guys will need the dog.
For sure. Don't even need to look at the numbers. I know for sure that we're going to need the 49ers in this one. Like we've said the entire year, the Lions have been the most bet on team, and this line probably tells you kind of exactly what you were saying with those injuries. I'd expect this to be significantly higher if they didn't have all those injuries, to the fact that it would probably be close to a touchdown to the Lions if it wasn't for all these injuries. So the injuries are kind of telling you, at least from the sharp perspective, the bookmaking modeling perspective, there is a chance that the 49ers could win this, or at least, keep it somewhat close. But that will not change where the bets will come in. They are going to come in on the Lions and pretty much only on the Lions.
I'm already expecting to. I may as well just burn my money that I'm going to be betting on San Francisco here in this game. But Christian, are you betting on the 49ers this week, or what are some of your favorite NFL Week 17 picks?
No, I'm going to avoid that one. But if I was, it would be with you on going on the 49ers, just off the fact that, I generally try to stay in the opposite direction of the public, even though that has been a losing decision this year of the Lions, because they have done an incredible job of covering throughout the year. But the two that I like, the one I actually liked earlier in the week, I won't officially suggest this one because that number is long gone, but I did like the Cowboys at that 9.5 because I thought there was a pretty good chance that Jalen's not going to play. That number's down to 6.5 now, so it's not looking like it. But the two I will say, believe it or not, the one I'm picking is a gross one, but I like the Cleveland Browns here, plus 6.5. I'm going to wait a little bit till Sunday to see if I can get it at 7. But Miami has kind of proved over the past couple of years that they do not play well in cold weather. So I'm going to go off that one and think that the Browns might be able to keep it at least within a touchdown. I'm hoping that DTR doesn't play either because I think that will be worse for the line as well. But and the other one I like is also another gross team, but they have been playing much better as of late. The Panthers at plus 8 versus the Buccaneers. For me, it's a divisional game where the Panthers have looked significantly better over the past month. So I do think they're going to be able to keep it within a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm with you on Carolina. I'll have a bet on the Panthers. The way Bryce Young has looked, and couple that with Tampa Bay, who, even though they have a winning record to this point and still in the thick of the NFC South race, a team to me that has been overvalued in the betting market. And this week, same deal, and Carolina catching over the key number of a touchdown. But he is Christian Cipollini, trading manager at BetMGM Sportsbook. Always appreciate the time, Christian, and good luck this week, not only with your picks, but I guess to the book. I'll give you another week of hopeful optimism for BetMGM Sportsbook.
Yeah, we don't need it, but I'll give good luck to all the players out there. Hopefully everything works out.
Yes, good luck to everybody watching and listening, and thank you for watching and listening to this edition of Beat the Closing Number and Behind the Lines, presented by BetMGM Sportsbook and TheLines.com. So long, everybody, and good luck with your NFL Week 17 picks.